Welcome to NM 1200 Week 7. So, this week I want to do something quite different with you, and we're just going to veer away from composition and image design, even though that's what's on the schedule for this week. Now, I really do believe that if you engage with those three lectures that are online, and I think there's four because Glenn has one as well, if you really engage with that content, then go out with your camera and just start exploring your environment. I can't stress enough how important it is to have that camera in your hand and out there taking photographs, looking through that camera at the world instead of just, with your two eyes, because it looks very different. And I think that you might have already realised that. So this week's topic was to be, using colour in composition, and I went over that. I combined that with last week's tutorial, but keep on engaging with that. How you use colour to create dominance and direction in your image. So this week, though, instead, I want to talk to you about monochromatic images because I've been seeing quite a few of you exploring black and white as a way to present your work. So this is an older lecture that I've brought up and I'm now using for you as a tutorial exercise. So when we think about, why do we use monochrome? Why do we strip out the colour from the world and present an image that is only, has tonal range, black and white? So monochrome, if we think about it, was the only way to photograph. Before the invention of colour film in 1936, there was only black and white. But monochrome is still considered that purest way of photographing, or the purest way of engaging with the world, because it takes your images back to a perfect platform which has no colour. But I'll get to that in a minute. So monochrome was the purest of all photography and is still considered to be that way in lots of circles in fine art. So successful monochrome images actually are dependent on an excellent range of tonality within an image. So what I'm referring to there is the light. The difference between the brightest whites and the darkest blacks, and is there a tonal range in between. So on the bottom of these slides, each week you'll see that there is a tonal gradient from the blackest black to the whitest white, and so that's what I'm actually talking about. Think about the range of colour that's also in the image, and towards the end of this podcast I'll talk to you about how colour converts to black and white or to monochrome. What I'm now saying to you that even though great masters of fine art photography have always worked in black and white, to actually emphasize that pure and simplistic form within the images, it continues today. So look at this Jackie Dean's work from 2013, where she's actually using X-ray film to produce these beautiful images. So monochrome is about the expression in the image, and colour could be considered regarding the realism. So as monochrome removes all colour from the image, it can be used as a compositional tool as well. But colour may be critical to the success of some images. So what I'm saying is that not all images are better as monochrome. And I think this is where you have to have that aesthetic consideration. If you convert an image from colour to black and white, what's it bringing to the image? Is the image better? So these are the conversations you have to have with yourself as you continue to work in photography. And some images are just not as successful as monochrome, and you have to consider that as well. So when you bring an image, when you convert an image from colour to monochrome, it's actually more reliant on those shapes and patterns and textures that you've been working with in the last few weeks in your composition exercises, and they're more pronounced, because we're not distracted. We're not distracted by a brightness of colour within the image, or examining the colour range or the colour palette that the photographer's used, or that you've used. So as I said, lighting and the contrast within the image produces a tonality. So if you look at this image from Irving Penn, you can see that there's a lovely highlight down the centre of her nose, and the eyes are very bright, and the lips. So that sort of formation draws the eye close to the center of the image, and then you see the contrast of the freckles against the skin. So there's this beautiful tonality within the image, and it's no, if you had this in color, a lot of that little detail wouldn't quite be as obvious. Black and white's always been the realm of the press photographer, from day dot, and it took a bit of um, conversion for even contemporary photojournalists to be working in colour. So in this Don McCulkin image, that sign that the man's holding and the colour of his overcoat are a different tonal range. So if you look at where's my cursor? If you look at these tones, look, they're more in this mid-range, and they're beautifully contrasted against the darkness of the police uniforms. But there's also this beautiful range of tonality in the background. Can you see this? With this pale greys, they come in around here, right through to whites. So when you're thinking about what you're seeing and how you're photographing, remember that it's always about that tonal range when you're working with black and white. So there's two ways of expressing tonal range. So low contrast has a smaller contrast, smaller tonal range, sorry, and high contrast has a larger tonal range. Okay, low key, there's a majority of darkness or dark tones in the image, and high key, there's a majority of lighter tones in the image. So if you look at this Bill Brandt image, most of the tonal range is around in here, okay, and just the moon is the brightest element right here. Just these areas here come into around here. Okay, so just think about how successful this is as a black and white image, because the shapes of the buildings are rendered towards the lower end of the tonal range, and they become just a silhouette or converted to a shape, and the moon itself also, because it's at the higher end, is converted to a shape. So it's quite a well put together image, and the connection, the line within this image is this road going through here, which is in that mid-tone area. So two more images, one from Don McCulkin and the other one for Bill Brandt. So Don McCulkin is a war photographer, Bill Brandt is a fine art photographer. But you see that they both had a strong understanding of how to work with black and white or monochrome images in their work. Both give this beautiful, both images contain this beautiful tonal range. This one's high contrast because there's that brightness against the shadow, so there's bright highlights and dark shadows. This one's got dark shadows, but the highlights are very diffused. Some more beautiful examples, Trent Park and Sally Mann. So you can see with the absence of colour in these images, the emphasis is on that beautiful light, tonality, and the shapes within the image, which could be people or it could be in an abstracted form. I particularly love this image of Sally Mann, where her daughter's is just floating in the water and her hair's spreading out, and it's just that little pop of light through the trees that has this moment of sunlight that highlights the face and the hair and the texture of the hair on the water and everything like that. So it's beautifully done. Now Sally works with film, so these aren't manipulated images. Trent Park does work with digital and film, so his work could be either or. So this image from Imogen Cunningham, can you see that it's high key? Okay, because it's got the majority of lighter highlights in the image, so they are in this area of the tonal range instead, and it's a low contrast image. There's not a huge range between that darkest part, so that would be here, to around there. Okay. So sometimes you can actually manipulate that tonality. Either visually you can see it and you capture it, or it can be manipulated in post-production. But I'm just going to say to you for one moment, when you have a a dark element, so this dead, no bushes, on, on a white field, so no, the snow in behind. If you expose correctly for the dark, there's a possibility that the snow or the lighter area may slightly overexpose. So this is about being smart about what you expose for in the scene. So how do you do that? Make sure that you take an exposure, go right in very close, take an exposure reading just off that element there, not the entire. So you don't want an evaluative exposure reading, you want a single or spot reading. And the same with this one. By exposing for the tree branches, so we want the blackness of those, it's actually pushed those highlights into nearly overexposure. So this isn't a mistake. When you intentionally expose for one area or element within an image and and understand the dynamic range of the camera, the capture device, as well as the subject brightness range or the range of tones within that image, then you're making an informed decision of how you want that image to appear. Same here. So exposing so that these lines are black against the white. So, how do some images look? No, before I said to you, not every image is suitable for monochrome, and that's the truth. So, this William Eggleston image, I believe, is totally reliant on the color contrast of colors within the image for its success. That beautiful contrast of blue against the yellows, and then these pinks within that field of yellow. Absolutely dependent on the color as a way to create contrast within the image, as well as a composition tool. So when it's converted to black and white, this is how it looks. It just doesn't have the same dynamic presence as the color image. And again, Tony Hewitt's image. So if you look at this, this really is an image about those beautiful contrasts of colors, and see how these colors, the yellow, green, lime colors, also pick up over here. So Tony's a master of using color in composition, and so when you convert that to black and white, it's still a nice image, but it doesn't have that it doesn't have that same presence. So as a photographer, you have to make these decisions all the time. Or if you decide to work with an image or to enhance an image in some way, you have to ask yourself, is it going to make the image better? So, and if the answer is no, then just leave it how it is. William Eggleston again. So William Eggleston's using these contrasts of colours. Look at this, the red and orange leads going across here, contrast against the blue sky in the background. Look, it converts to an okay image in black and white, but it doesn't, once again, isn't that such a powerful image as the colour image. So you learn to see in monochrome by understanding how colours actually convert. How does a red look in a black and white? How does this green look as a black and white, or when the colour's stripped out? And what happens to the blue sky? And we'll go into this in 1 minute. Once again, both beautiful images, both successful as either colour or black and white. So now it comes down to the intent, or what do you want to intend, or how do you want your image to be presented. Sometimes these decisions, black and white or colour, are really hard to make, especially if you're someone who's just starting out in photography. So what I suggest you do is to convert your image to monochrome or to black and white, and just have a look, see what you think. Some images are just born, or just meant to be captured in black and white. Hiller and Bernd Becker's topography, so they just they're topographic images, so they just went around photographing architectural form and industrial form, and there was to do this in colour, or to deliver them as colour images, they just wouldn't be as successful. Again, Elliott Hewitt, So here's an amazing example of how the black and white image has just converted all the elements in this frame to shape. No, so a progressive shape which create a beautiful image design. And Elliot Ewart again. Elliot Ewart is photographing with black and white film. Would colour bring anything to these images? I would suggest not. So how do we learn to see in monochrome? So when colour is converted to monochrome, it's converted in shades of grey, okay, which is a tonal range. And that tonal range and contrast is absolutely dependent on lighting as well as the colour within the subject matter. So that's what I've been talking to you about right until now. So if you look at this slide, the top panel is red, center panel is green, bottom panel is blue. Okay, so red, green, blue. When it's converted to black and white, this is how it looks. So which color converts as the darkest tone in black and white? Well, blue does, then red, and then green. So when you're looking at a scene, and this is where it becomes quite complicated. When you're looking at a scene and where there's a contrast of elements, so red, green, blue. So blue would be a sky. Green would be your foliage perhaps. And if you think about red is present in skin tone, but it's also present in some buildings, so red brick buildings and such. So think about where red would be present in earth, red earth. So how do you actually create that that difference within those images? So straight away, just by converting them to a monochrome or a black and white image, you will have that difference. If you have those deep blue skies, and your green will be quite so your deep blue skies, look where they fall in these areas here. Your greens fall in the mid-tones, but your reds actually end up quite washy in this area as well. So just think about how what balance of those colours you have in the image and where they cross over. So does the blue cross over against the green, or does blue cross over against the red? So if there's the blue and the red there's a crossover there, then they're a similar tonal value. That probably didn't make any sense to you, but please just go and photograph some elements where you have red and green overlapping in an image, and you'll see that they are very similar, so there's not much contrast there. Okay, so how can we then, two things, how can we fix that in post-production, and how in the first place do we actually convert our images from colour to black and white? So I wanted to absolutely confirm that there's a difference between black and white and monochrome. So monochrome is that single chroma, so it could be of any colour, but black and white is actually just a tonal range from black to white. So how do you convert? There's lots of ways to convert. You can just go to convert your colour image to grayscale. So go to Image, Mode and Grayscale. So the image originally contains red, blue and green colour channels, so see, RGB. And when you convert to grayscale, it strips out all that information and leaves you with a grayscale image. Okay. At times, and now this is an example, can you see this is an example where we've got those orange and reds against blue. So at times this will result in a low contrast image. So there's just not enough contrast between those elements. So look, this can be corrected by duplicating layers and using blending modes. We're not going to go there today. But so you can correct it through quite complex processes. Another way to convert your color image to black and white is image adjustments and desaturate. There it is. Okay, so here's image adjustment all your adjustments are in here. Once again, it strips out the color and leaves you with a grayscale image. Same result. You can go to image adjustment, hue and saturation, and by taking the saturation out of the image, or desaturating, so bringing that slider back to 0 here, it will give you a black and white image. Once again, it's strips out the color information. There it is. So that's an even worse, that's a worse conversion than the other. So you can go to image, mode, lab color. So in here, A channel is all the colors between magenta and green inclusively. B channel is all the colors between yellow and blue inclusively. Okay, and there it is. A and B, lightness, okay, and there's the three of them together. So when you actually reduce or remove, when you turn off your color channels, then you're left with this black and white image, which is actually just about the lightness, which is about that tonal range. Now this is a great conversion way to convert for certain images, but not for everything. So once again, can you see now how this this structure is very washed out? So lightness A and B, or lab, used to be the preferred conversion to black and white when Photoshop first came out. There's better processes now. An image needs to be converted to grayscale, away from lab, back to grayscale to continue working. So you can work with channel mixer. So how many ways have I told you that you can convert to black and white now? Your head may be spinning. Look, channel mixer is a little bit more complex way of converting to black and white, but now all of a sudden we have control of how that image looks. So you can find channel mixer in that image adjustment and then down to find channel mixer, or you can actually work with these layer adjustment tools, which is the preferred way to work with any post-production, especially with the JPEG image, because now working in these, see this little symbol down here, working with these adjustment layers, the adjustments are just over the top of the color image, so we haven't actually thrown away any pixels, we haven't done anything with the image itself. It's actually just at this point emulating how that image is going to look with these adjustments. It's only when we save it that those adjustments are applied. So here in this time I've opted to use channel mixer, and so when we click the monochrome checkbox here, all the color information is hidden, but it's still there. So, and in this case, once that's checked, then I can start manipulating how many pixels are left in the red, green and blue channels. So I can add more red, or I can subtract it, and vice versa. So now I can start to manipulate those color channels. So here we are. So you can see now, if you can think about now how that image looked with just that lab conversion. Look at the beautiful contrast in the brickwork, but also how the sky has been manipulated. So here I've taken away and I've added some colour. So now I have this really strong contrast within the brickwork itself, but also the sky has gone from that washy mid-grey to a beautiful black. You must at the end have all the numbers must add up to 100. Okay, the absolutely easiest way to convert an image to black and white is once again in those layer adjustments, and just use a black and white layer mask. It gives you all the advantages of working with channel mixer without the complication. So there we are. Once again, it's just an overlay layer. It's emulating what the image is going to look like. At the very end, it's not changed anything at this point. But here, once again, I can multiply or subtract the amount of pixels in either the red, green, or blue channels, but also now look at I've got cyan, blue, and magenta. So in this case, and with this adjustment layer, I have a huge amount of control over how the final black and white image will look. So that black and white adjustment layer filter provides you the ability to fine tune that conversion from color to black and white. But it also allows you to recolorize. So this is what I'm saying. When you think about monochrome, mono is a single chroma, and so we must should start using the correct terminology. Black and white is just got no black to white tonal range, but you can still have a monochrome image when it's a single chroma. So this is a sepia and this is a cool blue tint. Okay, and how do you do that? Once again, in that same black and white layer adjustment masking, and just check the tick the tint box, and then that takes you into colors and you can actually apply your tint. Okay, it's really that simple. The beauty of working with these adjustment layers is that you have always retain that color image that you started with, and so you can go from color to black and white and then back to color again just by eliminating that mask. Remember to save as, so if you do convert an image from color to black and white or to any other monochrome color, then make sure that you save it. So save as black and white, save as blue tone, save as sepia, and you'll know what you're looking at. So the other beauty of working with that adjustment layer mask is that you can reduce the opacities. So you can see how I've got here. So I pop my black and white layer mask over the top, my adjustment masking over the top, and by reducing it down to 70%, it's this lovely soft muted palette. Okay, and 50%, that's what it looks like. So the black and white adjustment layer mask is a powerful tool, and it's the easiest way for you to convert your image from color to black and white. So it's a scene with reds, yellows, greens, and blues in it, correct? There's the image just with, I've just put the the mask over the top, and there it is with some adjustment. So what I've been able to do is increase the contrast between the yellows and the reds and deepen the colour of the sky, quite simply, and there's the final image. Now the other beautiful thing about working with these adjustment layers is that by using these blending mode that are over in this area here, I've taken that off normal to luminosity, and I've actually applied that change to my color image, and so I've been able to increase the contrast in that color image just by using the black and white adjustment layer and a different blending mode. Okay, so that's a little bit more complicated post-production for you, but we can go over that in class again if you want to, or guys that are external, just go onto lynda.com. There's lots of little tutorials that specifically extend the conversation about any particular way of converting from color to monochrome. So that's us for this week, and I hope that you enjoy working with converting images from color to black and white. And look, you can try those different methods, but really, and the easiest way for you to work is by working with this and there it is. So in layers, there's a little icon. I call it the yin yang. So just go in there and you'll find all these different ways of that you can apply changes to your image. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next week. Fuck's sake.